You know, back in the 90s, Nickelodeon was it. Nickelodeon was the biggest network for kids back then. And a lot of people remember Nickelodeon for, their bigger shows like All of That, Ren and Stimpy, The Rugrats, Doug. But a lot of people forget there were some pretty good shows to kind of fell beneath the cracks. These shows that time has forgotten. But I haven't. And I think these shows deserve better. So, buckle up and get ready to take this ride with me down memory lane as we show some love to some of the shows I think deserve better. These are shows from the 90s that fell beneath those cracks and time seemed to forgot. But we haven't forgot. And today, we're going to make sure these shows get the love they deserve. Even though they were short-lived, they haven't been forgotten. So, here we go. This is a list of Nickelodeon shows from the 90s that definitely deserve better. Number 1, My Brother and Me. My Brother and Me premiered October 15th, 1994 and ended January 15th, 1995. Created by Ilunga Adele and Kevin Brown Jr., the show follows the Parkers, a family from the west side of Charlotte, North Carolina, and their highs and lows of everyday life. The cast includes Arthur Reggie III as older brother Alfred Alfie Parker, and Ralph Woolfolk as younger brother Derek D.D. Parker. The show lasted for one season with a total of 13 episodes. Man, when this show ended, it hurt. Growing up as a kid in the 90s, I felt like this was the one Nickelodeon show that really got it right. Especially, being a black American and it followed a black American family. I felt like they got the kids right, the way the kids acted, the way the kids dressed, the kids' attitudes. I mean, I really felt like that I went to school with Alfie. Like, this was like probably my friend from down the street. Because I could recognize these characters. I can actually see myself not only in his show, but I can see myself actually in the characters. Like look how they dress. That is 90s right there. I see a lot of people try to portray how 90s kids really dress. All you have to do is go back to some of these older shows that actually got it right, like My Brother and Me. And just look, the hairstyle, the clothing. And I know it might look corny today, but back in the day, that was the style. That right there was it. My Brother and Me pretty much summed up how it was to be a early 90s black kid. This was it. And when the show ended, it hurt. But today, I think you can still find some episodes probably on YouTube or somewhere else. But we will always have My Brother and Me to look back on. Nickelodeon finally got it right. Unfortunately, only lasted for one season. But, hey, it will always be in our memories and always be in my heart, man. So, yeah, man, this is for the first black Nickelodeon family. My Brother and Me. Salute Your Shorts. Salute Your Shorts first premiered July 4th, 1991 to September 12th, 1992, created by Steve Slavkin. The show follows the life of young campers at the fictional camp Unawana, and despite the short run, the show was one of the highest rated cable programs. The cast includes Michael Stein as Eric MacArthur and camp bully Robert Bobby Butnick, played by Danny Kutsky, as they vied for the attention of girls at camp. Salute Your Shorts, even though it only lasted for 2 seasons, it kind of somewhat became a cult classic later on. Nickelodeon played a lot of reruns in the 90s, and the popularity of the show later just kind of blew up. And even though the show is sort of like a cult classic now, back in the 90s, a lot of people just didn't watch the show when it was airing like that. Well, a lot of people watched it, but I think it became more popular during the reruns. Like, even though the show was one of the highest rated programs when it was out, it was still short lived. And I think it became a cult classic once the reruns really start hitting. And people to this day, when you think about Nickelodeon in the early 90s, some people might think about, like Wild and Crazy Kids and stuff like that, but you have to put Salute Your Shorts up there. Salute Your Shorts was like a staple in kids television back in the day, back in the 90s for Nickelodeon. And so, yeah, man, it goes out to Salute Your Shorts. Even though it only lasted 2 seasons, I think it definitely deserved better. Even though it's somewhat of a cult classic now, I wish it could have went on for more seasons. So, this is my salute to Salute Your Shorts. Space Cases. Space Cases premiered March 2nd, 1996 and ended on January 27th, 1997 on Nickelodeon. Space Cases is a science fiction series that aired on Nickelodeon for 2 seasons. Created by Peter David and Bill Mumy, it aired on Nickelodeon's Saturday night block shows known as SNICK. The show revolves around a group of misfit students and 2 adults who are stranded far from home aboard an alien ship. The show stars Walter Jones as Harlan Band and Jewel Steck as Catalina. Now, Space Cases, even though it was short-lived and a lot of people forget about it now, it was one of those shows I used to watch on SNICK as a kid, and I loved watching it. And I used to be a Trekkie back in the day. I was really into Star Trek Next Generations as a kid. And once I seen Nickelodeon had their own version of Star Trek, which was Space Cases, I was really invested into it. And then especially that one of the lead characters was the Black Power Ranger, Walter Jones. If people didn't know, Walter Jones, he plays the Black Ranger in the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers show. And yeah, I was hooked after that. And sadly, the show only lasted for 2 seasons, 2 short seasons. And since then, a lot of people totally forget about it. Even today, when people just remember Walter Jones from Power Rangers. And I understand why Power Rangers was that show back in the day as a kid. But for me, Power Rangers and Space Cases, Walter Jones will always be remembered for those 2 shows for me. So, shout out to Walter Jones, and shout out to the whole cast of Space Cases, man. The show is gone but not forgotten. The Tomorrow People. The Tomorrow People was originally a British children's science fiction series created by Roger Price for the ITV network, which ran from April 30th, 1973 to February 19th, 1979. Until Nickelodeon requested a new version to be filmed at Nickelodeon Studios, Florida. The new version of The Tomorrow People aired on Nickelodeon in April 1992 and ran until March 1995. The show starred Kristen Smith as Adam and Naomi Harris as Amy. The show revolves around normal kids gaining special paranormal abilities such as psychic powers and teleportation. Now this show was one of those shows when I was growing up that really intrigued me because pretty much these kids were like X-Men. That's pretty much the premise of the show. This is supposed to be like the new evolution into like human abilities, and these kids, as they're becoming teenagers, they're all gaining these special abilities which give them psychic powers, teleportation powers, and the government is like chasing these kids and stuff like that. And I didn't know that it was originally an old British show from the 70s, which they just kind of remade back in the early 90s for the US. But I remember watching this show and I was hooked. I was really hooked on this show. And I think recently they came out with another version, like last year. They remade it and tried to do another version, which I think probably lasted for like a season or 2. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But I know the show got canceled. So it just wasn't the same. A lot of these shows, it worked for the 90s. It doesn't work in today's age, But yeah, man, this is for the Tomorrow People, for all the people who remember this show. And if you don't remember it, go back and check it out. It's pretty good. And you might see some familiar faces in there too. So yeah, so check out the Tomorrow People. This is a show that that a lot of people might have forgot, but definitely in my book, not forgot.